Hello again, everyone. This is Bob Milam with the Utah High School Football Officials Association with another study topic for 2024. Today, we're going to cover shifts and motion and help you understand these two rules. So let's get started. Today's agenda, as follows. Again, we're going to just cover why we're even talking about this subject. It seems like a very minor part of the rules, and it's again a protocol rather than a safety issue, at least on the surface. So we're going to just talk a little bit about why we're talking about these 2 points. We're going to look, of course, at the rule book definitions. That's where I always start with these presentations to base us in the rule book so that our mechanics and our decisions on the field follow what's in the book. Then we'll talk about the most likely times that you're going to see these fouls occur, how to watch for it, how to call it and report it, and then we'll sum everything up and hopefully leave enough time for questions at the end. So why are shifts and motion important? Well, why even focus on these protocols at all? It seems very nitpicky. It's not a rule that seems to be not very central to the game of football itself. So why do we even have these rules in place, and why do we need to follow them? Well, the main reason is that we need to maintain balance between offense and defense. And the game of football is determined by the skill and execution of the offense and defensive game plans. It's not slanted one way or the other. So offense does not get an advantage and defense, nor does defense. So the rules are there to create balance between the two so that excellent performance is what makes the difference in the success of football plays. It also prevents offenses from gaining advantages that occur simultaneous with the snap due to movements that they make prior to the snap. So, as they're doing their movements, they have the opportunity to confuse and disguise what they're going to do offensively. This creates an advantage for them. If they do it illegally, then the advantage moves into the realm of either an illegal motion or an illegal shift. And we're going to talk about that. Finally, we actually need to improve a lot in this area and catch these fouls when they occur. I've got some film that we will accompany this presentation that shows how sometimes things can go south if we miss these fouls. So we'll take a look at these, and we need to improve and be better at catching these things that are actually very easy to see if we understand the rules behind them. So let's look in the rule book. And where do I always start? I start in the very basic definitions, and we're going to look at three of them. We're going to define what a shift is, what a huddle is, and what motion is. So let's take a look at these definitions. Shift and huddle are defined in these two rules. Rule 2-30 defines what a shift is, and Rule 221 defines what a huddle is. So take a moment, pause this video, and look these rules up and discuss them so that you understand what the rest of the rules are based on. This is the very basic definition of what a shift and a huddle is. Now, motion is defined in a completely different place. It's not found in Rule 2 in the rule book. You have to look all the way over to Rule 727 on page 62. And we're going to cover that in just a moment. But this is the basic three concepts upon which these rules are based. And it's very important that you understand these building blocks for the game. All right, let's go ahead and let's look at motion a little closer at this definition that's found on page 62. If you read this rule, and I want you to turn to it if you have your rule book available, turn to page 62 and follow along and read the rule as I summarize it here. But basically, this rule says that only one player may be in motion at the snap. That player must not be moving toward his opponent's goal line. If that player begins as a lineman, in other words, an end, on the line of scrimmage, then he must be at least 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage at the snap if he started as a lineman, meaning they started with 8 or 9 on the line of scrimmage and then put the fourth back, turned him into a back at the snap. So you cannot have more than 4 backs at the snap. This includes this person that's in motion, this lineman. If he is a back, if he starts as a back, then there is no such requirement. He can simply go in motion as long as he is not moving toward his opponent's goal line. Very rarely will you ever see a lineman go in motion. These are usually backs who are split wide or in the slot in most formations. Now, what you're going to likely see, it's illegal motion if you see these things occur. There's more than one player in motion at the snap. If that player is moving toward his opponent's goal line, in other words, he turns and moves up toward the line of scrimmage prior to the snap. If he's moving toward his opponent's goal line, that's illegal motion. If he's a lineman, if he's less than 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage at the snap, and I mentioned this is very rare, you rarely see this. Illegal motion, though, can only happen after all the shifts are completed and all players have come to a stop for at least 1 full second. Then they can go in motion. But if illegal motion is usually going to be a player moving toward his opponent's goal line, most of the time, that's going to be your illegal motion, is that one instance. Occasionally, more than one player in motion at the snap could be called either illegal motion or an illegal shift. So mainly illegal motion is a single player moving toward his opponent's goal line when the ball is snapped. So let's look at a legal shift. We already looked at the definition of what a shift is, but what makes it legal and what makes it illegal? Well, this is defined in Rule 726, also on page 62. If you were there just a minute ago looking at Rule 727, it's right above it. And basically this says, and I'll quote here, after a huddle or shift, and that's why we had to define those two terms, because now you need to know what has to happen first before an illegal shift can occur. So after a huddle or shift, all players of Team A shall come to an absolute stop and shall remain stationary simultaneously without movement of hands, feet, head, or body for at least 1 second before the snap. If they don't, then it's an illegal shift. If they do, then that makes the shift legal. So this is the definition, word for word, printed from the rule books. Absolute stop, at least 1 second, and all players. Those are the key things to remember out of this rule. Now, what are you going to likely see when an illegal shift occurs? It usually shows itself of at least 2 players moving simultaneously when all players who move fail to completely stop simultaneously for at least a second before the snap. So for the people to be moving, that's okay, but they've got to come to a stop, all of them, for at least 1 second before the snap. The other way you're going to see this is through body movements of the lineman, leaning or rolling starts, where the lineman goes from a 2-point to a 3-point stance, and then the ball is immediately snapped. This rolling start creates a momentum advantage for the offense that the rules prevent. And this is where our rules for the shift transform from balance of offense and defense to player safety. That rolling start by the offensive line places the defense at a significant safety disadvantage for illegal blocks that might occur close to the snap at the line of scrimmage. So it is important for both safety reasons and for offensive defensive balance that we get these illegal shifts. All right, so how do we make the call? Well, illegal shifts and illegal motion are live ball fouls. These do not require a whistle to be blown. but they are simultaneous with the snap, and in fact, they do not become a foul until after the snap happens. So they're simultaneous with the snap. They're fouling while the snap is beginning. So they can correct these before the snap occurs, and that's why they're live ball fouls. So don't blow your whistle when you see an illegal shift or illegal motion. Simply throw your flag high at the snap, high into the air. Note the player numbers who are involved in your decision. Do this verbally to yourself as you toss your flag high at the snap. Then continue to officiate the rest of the down. Other things can happen during this down. And so we need to make sure that we don't just stop once we've seen this foul occur. We have to quickly note the players, then continue to officiate, report, and enforce it from the previous spot. So it's a very simple process that we go through, but it requires concentration and effort and vigilance on the part of our wing officials, particularly, to get these calls and to see them. So let's sum up what we've talked about today. Shifts in motion provide strategic advantages to the offense, and that's why they're part of the game. But the rules require compliance with the rules on legal shifts and legal motion in order to preserve balance and maintain safety. Huddles, shifts, and motion are clearly defined in the rules, and you need to go back and review the definitions at their very most basic level in order to understand how to apply them when you see them during a game. Illegal motion usually involves one player moving forward at the snap. However, illegal shifts are a little different. They can involve either more than one player moving at the snap, or all players failing to completely stop simultaneously, or players failing to remain stationary for at least 1 second before the snap occurs. Shift and motion fouls, as we mentioned, are live ball fouls simultaneous with the snap. So remember, don't blow your whistle, allow the play to continue. I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. It was a quick one, but we will be looking forward to having a great rest of the 2024 season. Thanks again.